Good afternoon. My name is Professor Lynn Karstadt and I'm the Executive Dean of Health, Engineering and Sciences here at USQ. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome everybody to the salon. And that, of course, includes everybody who's here with us in the studio and everybody else who's joining us via live stream. First of all, I'd like to do the acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, the University of Southern Queensland recognises that it is situated on country for which Jarawar and Gayabal people have been custodians for many centuries, and on which they have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and unique role in the life of this region and offer our deep appreciation for their contribution to and support of our academic enterprise. Thank you. Now, before I go any further, just a few housekeeping rules for those people who are in the room. Mobile phones on silent, please. There's a restroom outside in the foyer, should you need it. And also, if we have a fire drill, there's only the one exit. And so, if necessary, if you could walk out calmly and make your way out to the Northern Engineering Lawn area. There'll be time for questions following the presentation, or just observations if that's what you want to share. And that will follow the presentation. Questions can also be emailed, and you will see details of the email address on the screen. Or you can follow us on Twitter at #USQSalon. For our participants online, welcome. USQ Salon is streamed live using livestream.com. The salon is recorded, and this recording will be available on USQ Salon website. You can also please email us on usqsalon@usq.edu.au or tweet us on #USQSalon. Now, it's my absolute pleasure to get on with the business and to welcome Dr. Jenine Beekhuyzen, who's founder of the Technical Girls Movement. I've got a few words here about Jenine so that you can put her in context. So, Dr. Jenine Beekhuyzen is one of Advanced Queensland's digital champions and was named by the Sydney Morning Herald as a female rising star in ICT. She's also the winner of the 2014 Australian Information Industries Association, AHA, Award for Queensland ICT's Woman of the Year. Dr. Jenine Beekhuyzen is a social entrepreneur, and she's an academic, and an advocate for increasing the number of women in STEM. She's the founder and CEO of the non-profit making Tech Girls Movement, TGM, I believe you call it for short. And she runs her own research consulting company, Android Research, with her expertise in qualitative research. Dr. Beekhuyzen completed her doctorate in Australia on authorised file sharing in 2010. And she's turned her research on gender into practice by producing the illustrated children's book Tech Girls Are Superheroes. And there are 2 volumes, so 1 and 2. And Tech Girls Are Chick. Free books which have received widespread success, with 55,000 copies distributed to schoolgirls across Australia. So that's quite an accolade, Jenine. Her advocacy for girls and women in STEM is based on more than a decade of internationally peer-reviewed research, and she's had more than 60 published peer-reviewed papers. Dr. Beekhuyzen is also the Queensland authorised trainer for QSR's NVivo software, with more than 15 years of research experience. In 2012, she was awarded the Claudio Kibora Award for Innovative Research at the European Conference for Information Systems in Barcelona, and the University Award for Outstanding Teaching and Learning. Jenine, we're very excited to hear what you've got to say this morning. So if you want to come up to the podium and take over from me, the stage is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for that very, very nice introduction. And I'm extremely pleased to be here today. So Welcome to everybody in the room and hi to everyone online. And I feel very blessed to be here as part of this community. I have a long history with the University of Southern Queensland. I have worked with many, many researchers here over the years. I've also worked with the amazing Go West team who have done lots of great work here in regional Queensland to encourage young girls, particularly into STEM, and to support women in STEM. And so here I am in a bit of a full circle coming back around to talk about some of our Tech Girls Are Superheroes work. So it's very, very nice to be here, and what a great place to be. So yes, thank you for that lovely introduction, and I'll tell you a little bit about the Tech Girls movement and this idea of how can you be an academic and a social entrepreneur. I hadn't actually seen it in the same sentence before, so that made me think a little bit. I guess I'm someone who gets bored quite easily, so I like to do lots of different things, and for me, doing research is extremely important, so having a good research base for anything we go out and advocate. However, research has its place, but we need to turn that into practice as well. And so for me, it's been very important to turn all of the learnings that we've gained over the last sort of 15 years in doing our research around women and girls in technology and turn that into something really practical that we can take back out to schools and to industry and influence current practice. So I guess I see myself as a bit of a disruptor. When I don't like the way things are, I don't really like to complain about them. I like to do something about it. And when we talk about women in STEM particularly, this is a conversation that I myself have been having with academics for the last 15 years, but it's only been in the last, say, 12 months that it's actually become a political issue in Australia and in other places around the world. It's nice to see that politics is finally catching up with the conversation that we've been having for a very long time. But I think having policymakers on board is extremely important because we're never going to change structures if we don't have people on the inside actually making those changes as well. So for myself, rather than standing on the outside and complaining, why do I have very few girls in my first year IT course at Griffith University? I've been teaching for a long time in the IT degree. And so over many years, I've been seeing 1, 2, 3 girls come into the class or young women coming to the first year degree, and very few of them, so less than 5%. What frustrates me about that is the young women that do come through the degree who stay there generally do very, very well, but we're just not getting them to the university level. Now, I realise university is not for everybody, and I'm not advocating that everybody should go to university, but certainly finding a path that suits young people and giving young people choices is something that's very important to me. And I guess part of where this comes from is through my experience of teaching at university, also running a bunch of intervention programs for schoolgirls over the last, say, decade. But also I look back on my 5-year-old self and think, what would I like her to know about the world out there? And I guess I wish, if I had known now, of course, what I know now. But not so much that. I guess it's about, I didn't feel I had a lot of choices as a young person. I guess I grew up in a low socioeconomic area. I was never expected to go to university. Nobody in my family had been to university before me. And so it was never really an option. But even further education or doing something really valuable with my life was never really on the cards. It was kind of go to work, get a job, do what you have to do, pay the bills, and that's your life. And for me, that wasn't very appealing. And I'm sure for most people, you probably feel the same. So I decided to go to university and study information technology. And I guess the reason I studied information technology was mostly because I knew there would always be something new to learn. And what university taught me mostly is how to learn and how to keep wanting to learn more. And of course, the more you know you don't know. But I think that's a good position to be. And I always try not to be the smartest person in the room, not that I'm sure that would happen, but I think it's always good to take information and knowledge from others as much as possible. And so with the Tech Girls movement, we're very much about partnerships and working with other organisations, and certainly not reinventing the wheel, but trying to move the wheels a little bit forward. So where do I start? In about 2.5 years ago, 2013, I set up the Tech Girls movement as a company. And at the time, it wasn't easy to get a charity status. It's only happened in the last couple of months. But the Tech Girls movement is really around creating the next generation of female technology leaders. So we're trying to create a workforce that's capable of building the technology of the future. At the moment, I don't believe we have that. If you look at the statistics around diversity in technology firms, they're quite dismal. In Silicon Valley a couple of years ago, all the big tech companies came out and talked about their numbers of women in technical roles in their companies. And they ranged from, say, Twitter, which had maybe 11% women in technical roles, up to, say, Google, who had 17%. 17%, not great. Now, what all this comes back to is, why do we care? why is this actually important and why are we talking about it? Does it really matter that we don't have diversity in these kinds of companies? Well, actually, it really does matter. When I think about the technology I use every day, and here most of us here are sitting with some kind of technology, we use it in every part of our lives most of the time now, that technology is built by a very specific cohort of people, okay? And they certainly are people that don't reflect who I am or know what I want in my technology. So I think about it as those people, and nothing against the people who are building our technology, of course we need them. But if we have diversity, it creates better decision making. Like there's endless evidence that if we have different people with different views working together, we're going to have better outcomes in terms of more varied decisions and ideas. So for instance, if you apply for a patent, I think you're something like 40% more likely to get that patent cited if you have a female on the team, just simply because it brings a diversity of thought to what's going on in that particular project. Diversity also there's evidence around better financial performance of companies. Boards generally perform better. There's better company reputation. So to me, it's really a no-brainer that we need to have this diverse workforce. How do we get women to work in the technology or STEM industry, so science, technology, engineering and maths? I guess the reason why we all get lumped together is because we all have a very similar issue. I think there's generally more women in science, a few less in tech, a few less in engineering, and then a few less in maths. But we're all facing the same barriers and the same challenges to getting more women, or young women particularly, to get interested in these areas. So I think we need to go back to basics and how are we going to get young people interested in technology, and that's the only way we're going to fill the pipeline. So they talk about this leaky pipeline we have, that we maybe get girls' attention, but then we lose them along the way. What we need is to plug in the pipeline and keep them moving along so that we eventually get them in positions where they actually can make a difference with the technology they build every day. And certainly I have evidence that they can make a difference with that, and I'll share some of that with you. So that's kind of the research background as to why I'm here. And I guess myself being one of a few girls in my own IT degree, being almost the only woman in the class when I teach in the IT degree, and going out to industry and talking to companies, and they really do want to hire different kinds of people. They don't want everyone who looks the same and acts the same in the room. I mean, that's not beneficial to anyone. And who wants to be in that situation? So I think there is a real need there, but they're not really sure what to do. How can they get involved? How can we make a difference? And for me, it's really about going back to the classroom. So I guess part of this is around unconscious bias. It's a term we've been using a little bit lately. It's caught on a little. And unconscious bias is really when there are structures in place and there are perceptions about certain people and about all of us, stereotypes essentially, that we assign to people that may not necessarily be accurate, but we use them because they're a useful way to think about things. So if you think about the people who work in STEM, science, tech, engineering and maths, the first image you probably get, as I do, is the nerdy boy with the big Coke bottle glasses, pants up to their armpits, drinking Coke and eating pizza and sitting in the corner. Now, the reason why we have that stereotype is because that's what we see in the media. That's what we see in the movies, television shows, and it's very rare that we do see a female in any of those kinds of technical roles in the media. If we do see them, so for instance CSI or those kinds of television shows, if we do see them, it's always the weird girl or the unusual girl. It's not the mainstream, what you would expect, like the atypical role model, I guess. So I guess it's about breaking down some of those barriers and stereotypes and giving a new kind of perception of what women in STEM are like, and a powerful perception of that, because we do great stuff and we want young people to come and join us and in the industry and actually make a difference. And for me, working in technology is one area I really feel I can make a difference. I don't know what job I'm going to be doing in 5 years' time, because probably the technology hasn't been created yet. And for me, that's extremely exciting. So Lynn mentioned my PhD, which was on illegal or unauthorised file sharing. Now, 10 years before I did my PhD, wasn't even a topic. So then I studied that, learnt lots from that, and I think that's the cycle of technology, and that's the beauty of it, is that we don't necessarily know all the answers. And I don't want to know all the answers, I want to spend time finding out the answers. So for me, that's very powerful. So thus comes in the Tech Girls movement. So as I mentioned, 2.5 years ago, we launched on the 8th of March, International Women's Day, 2014, so just over 2 years ago, and we launched with the campaign called Tech Girls Are Superheroes. So where does this come from? So this is very much based on research that I've been doing for a very long time with my team down at Deakin University, my team at Griffith, and I've got some colleagues overseas. And I wanted to find a way of bringing the research. So the research says there are two main reasons why young girls particularly are turned off or not interested in technology. The first reason is a lack of visible female role models. So they don't have, I mean, the saying is, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I think that's really powerful. And I stole that, by the way, by Dr. Kate, so I'll tweet her and let her know I stole that. But again, it's all about partnerships and learning from each other. The other part is there's really a lack of understanding of what people in technical roles do. Because again, we see them in the media as being very shallow kinds of people in very superficial kinds of roles, and we don't actually see what they get to do. And so I have young people say to me things like, it just doesn't actually seem like a real job, not something that I would actually do. You know what a doctor does, you know what a lawyer does, you know what a teacher does. You don't necessarily know what a technologist does, because we don't really talk about it, and it's maybe a little bit more difficult to explain. And if you talk about, okay, I work in the tech industry, how many different types of jobs out there are there? They're endless, and that's really part of the reason why it's hard to nail down exactly what it is we do as well. And it's a very new industry, and it takes time to develop those kinds of conceptions as well. So turning that research into practice, the Tech Girls Are Superheroes campaign came together. And this book profiles 26 women who work in STEM, mostly tech, but certainly there are a few engineers and others in here, and scientists, as superhero characters. So for instance, I'm Juella, I'm a superhero. So, but the idea of a superhero is not that we're good at everything. It's about finding that one thing that you're good at, that you pull out when you need to get you through that tough situation. And I find that every day working in tech, and I'm sure you all do as well. So now is the point that I ask you all, what is your superpower? You don't have to answer me yet, but I'll come back to you later. But the conception of a superhero is something that's all powerful. It's heroic. It's there to make the world a better place and to try to build bridges between people and communities and society in general. And there's a nice feeling about it. And you see young people particularly dressing up as superheroes on Halloween or for costume parties and things like that. And I thought if we can get them dressing up as tech girl superheroes, maybe we might get some positive messages to them nice and early. And really it's about having lots of positive messages in many different ways over different years to embed the idea that we're actually changing culture. We're trying to change culture. We're trying to change the whole way people think about this particular or these industries. So, and I guess partly where this came from, I went to the Brisbane Writers' Festival a couple of years ago, and there was a woman there who was talking about a character that she has developed for a superhero character for one of the big companies. And so a female superhero character, and she talked about how her character has this little magic cap. So her character, the superhero, puts the cap on, which makes her a superhero, and then she's able to do all these amazing things by wearing this cap. I thought this was really powerful because one thing she mentioned was people were taking this on in their real lives. So she had a fan who was actually getting cancer treatment. What this person did, she actually knitted her own cap, put it on when she went into treatment to give her the power to get through that situation. I still get goosebumps when I think about that story. Because for me, that's powerful. That's actually making a change in people's lives. Excuse me. So for me, I thought, if we can adopt that concept and apply it to the tech or the STEM industries, then maybe there's something there that we can work with. So Tech Girls Are Superheroes came together, and all of the women in the first book are people that I know who've inspired me in lots of different ways, and they just do great stuff with technology every day. So I wanted to showcase them to our young audience and to show them these are some real life role models. They're people you can actually meet in real life. They're not the head of some massive company that you're never going to get access to, and they're great as well, but we need a variety of role models. And something that's just really practical and hands-on that we can take away. We can share this with our friends. We can show our parents, absolutely key. If we don't get parents on board to support our young women, they're never going to have the option to do this either. And teachers as well. And so I've been running a lot of interventions. One of them is called the Go Girl, Go for IT event down in Victoria. I'm part of running that for the last, say, 10 years. So it's an event that happens every 2 years, and they invite 1,500 schoolgirls onto Deakin University campus. So we've been evaluating those events for the last 10 years. We have, I think, about 9,000 surveys from girls and over this longitudinal study, and trying to really understand what works on the day, how do we get their attention, how can we sustain that. So the book really was a way of giving the girls something to take home with them at the end of the day, because one day is great, but what happens after one day? We lose the momentum. Take this away, talk to your friends, talk to your parents, draw all over it, do whatever you need to. There's been dogs, I've had pictures of dogs eating books and people asking for new ones and things like that. But just go and have some fun with it. And then One comment I did have from a number of people was, it's a book about technology. Why have you got it in hard copy? For me, I did the research, and teenage girls simply aren't reading ebooks. Okay, about 20% of teenage girls read ebooks. So for me, they were never going to read it if I had just an e-copy. And you may notice it's very colourful, it's very, very illustrative, and for me, this comes to life, okay, in a hard copy book. It's not the same when we're dealing with a screen. So this book, at the time when I launched it, I have to admit, I probably didn't know as much as I should have. I'm kind of, I don't know about you, but I fake it till you make it. That's a good rule, and it's okay to get things wrong, and that's something we really want to instill in young people. It's okay to fail. Fail fast, fail quickly, get it out of the way and move on to the other stuff. But failure is part of success. You'll never have success if you don't have failure. And I've certainly had many failures. We won't talk too much about those. We'll talk about the good stuff today. But it's all about learning, and learning from those experiences and finding the next way of doing things. In reality, this is actually the second book. So the first book, Tech Girls Are Chic, which Lynn mentioned, was launched 8 years ago, and it was very pink. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's very pink. I learned from that experience. I learned that it probably wasn't the best approach. It had a very specific market, and it did a good job for the market that we had, but it was never going to have that widespread appeal, and I've certainly learnt from that. And there we are, we have very neutral colours, and we've approached it in a slightly different way this time. So this book, my plan was to give them out free to schoolgirls across Australia. So I went to companies and said, please give me money, and then I can give these books out to schools. So I had a bunch of companies come on board the first year round, which was fantastic. I raised about $80,000 first year. So sometimes it turns out you just have to ask. That's one of the messages you should take away from today. You just have to ask. And they came together and we produced the book. So essentially companies put ads in the book. So they gave money for that so I could give them out free. So I spent a lot of time at the post office posting books out. So 20,000 copies of the first book have gone out in the last 2 years. So at the end of last year, pretty much 20,000 copies had gone out. And 20,000 of the first one, Tech Girls Are Chic, went out over 6 years. These ones went out over 2 years. And then I was randomly in Luxembourg last year, meeting with the Grand Duchess as a result of all of this work. Long story, but very awesome. You never know where this will take you. And there I was standing with a whole bunch of inspiring people. They're saying, so when are you doing the next book? I had a minor heart attack. Just got the books out there. But I thought I really want to keep the momentum going because there was such a great buzz around it and the brand was growing and I could see young girls really engaging with it. So I wanted to keep that going. So sanity kicked in, or insanity I should say, and I decided to do a new book. So this book, Tech Girls Are Superheroes #2, came together in 10 weeks, just this year. We started in January. It was launched on the 8th of March, International Women's Day, yet again, 2 years after the first book. So I have a great team around me who help me, so I certainly don't do all of this alone. But the idea was to bring back some of our original superheroes and some of their next adventures, but then also bring in a bit of an international flavour and some superheroes from around the world as well. So again, I raised money quite quickly, probably not as much as I would like, but quite quickly got enough to put this together and to print 20,000 copies. They were literally at my house the evening on the 7th, and we launched on the 8th in Sydney. So they made it just in time. But you know, that's what superheroes do, huh? I had to pull out my cape that day. But so now this book is very exciting in that in the last 8 weeks, just over 8 weeks, about 17,500 copies actually have gone out. So it's gone up since you got the bio. So 17,500 copies have gone out in 8 weeks, which blows my mind. It took 2 years for this one and it's been so super quick. I think, again, the momentum is there. People were looking for something else. And now that people are aware of the issue and they're talking about it and they want to do something really practical in the classroom, they're looking for any kinds of resources that they can find. And this is one of them, I guess. One of the features of the book also is there's a website that actually shows what the women do in real life. What sort of books do they read? How do they spend their spare time? What do they actually do in their job? So the book actually has a short fiction story from each of the superheroes about how they change the world with technology. So it's very light, very fun, quite short stories, and then they can go to the website and get more information. So it's kind of an all-round package. They can come to events, they can meet these people, they can get mentored by them. So it's really a holistic approach. As I said, I'm not here to stand on other people's toes or to reinvent the wheel, but for me it's about partnerships. So we've got some really great partnerships together who help me distribute the books across Australia. We now have one in every single school in Australia. That happened about a month ago. So Google very nicely came on board. They're doing amazing stuff for computer science education in Australia. And so their outreach team came on board and basically made it happen. That's the nice thing about working with companies like that who actually care. They have a very long-term vision about their workforce. And they seem to realize that if they don't invest now, they're not going to have the workforce they need. I wish more companies would get that, but they're starting to. So they're certainly leading the way. So I've had many teachers coming up to me saying, oh, your book arrived to school, can we get more? So I've been posting books out to schools in bulk, so we send them out. Now complementing this, so the book is one thing, which is great, and it's a long-term thing. So the books are there, they can be posted out. Part of what I also do is run a competition. So the competition is called The Search for the Next Tech Girl Superhero. So again, we all have a little superhero inside. It's kind of like the next top model, you know, with a tech flavour. So you play on words a little bit as you do. It's all about patterns. Our brains recognise patterns. So the Search for the Next Tech Girl Superhero, it's our 3rd year running it this year. So we ran it in 2014, and I didn't really have an idea of how it was going to work, but I wanted a way for girls to share their ideas about what kind of technology they'd like to build. So I got them to think about what kind of problem in their local community they want to solve, and then can you actually import that and send in your ideas and tell us what you think that idea might be. And I realised I probably should put the website up here as well, because it's a cool picture. And my mouse isn't working. Anyway, I'll bring that up later. Oh, if you jump up there. If anyone wants to jump up and move my mouse. See, tech girls, that's why we need more superheroes. The mouse shouldn't misbehave like this. It's fine, it's no big deal. So the Search for the Next Tech Girl Superheroes, back in 2014, excellent, thank you. 2014, we had 18 girls participate, so it was quite a small intake in the first year, and I think this just shows what we're on about really nicely. So we had 18 girls who sent in their ideas about what kind of app they'd like to build. Our winner in 2014, her name is Sarah Price. So Sarah is from Melbourne Girls Grammar. She was 12 at the time. Sarah won because she had created an app. She'd actually not just had an idea, she had created an app. It was on the App Store for sale. It was called Positive Penguins. So what Positive Penguins does is it helps young people just like herself to deal with difficult situations and build self-esteem at 12. The best part is she had already sold 20,000 copies when she entered the competition. I'm not sure if you're feeling as inadequate as I am right now. Yeah, it happens, don't worry. So such a great success story, and it was so nice to have such an amazing young entrepreneur coming through that we could highlight and showcase, and just around, again, building technology for social good. So that really touched me quite a lot. So Sarah's one of our fabulous ambassadors now. So from that, in 2015, we ran the competition, The Search for the Next Tech Girl Superhero. Last year, we had 132 girls participate. So we went from 18 to 132, which is not too bad, I think. So, and there probably wasn't a lot of extra promotion other than the fact the brand was growing. Through those 132 girls, we had 4 states across Australia represented. Not as many as I would like, but 4 was pretty good. And we had state finalists. So the winning team from last year were from St Aidan's Anglican Girls' School in Brisbane. And their app, or their team, their app is called Paws Out, so like a dog paw. So the way they describe it is they match hectic dog owners with teenagers who need exercise. So essentially it's an Uber for dog walking. So, and you get points for walking dogs in your local community, and you can redeem them at the local shops and things like that. So in some ways it's kind of like, wish I would have thought of that yesterday. It's kind of a no-brainer, but it's probably something none of us would have thought about. And it's about tapping into what problems young people are having, and for them developing solutions that work for them. And for them, that was something that they thought they could find really useful. So Team Paws Out are doing amazing things. So we're taking them to San Francisco in July to be part of the global competition. So I should mention that the Search for the Next Tech Girl Superhero is, bless you, is actually part of a Technovation Challenge, which is a global competition for girls based in San Francisco. So Technovation have been operating for a number of years, and until last year, they'd never had an entry from Australia. So this was brought to my attention, so I thought, let's pursue this. So Tech Girls Movement became their regional ambassador, and so we're the regional ambassador in Australia. And this year, we've had 14 entries in the global competition from Australia, based on our teams from last year, which is a pretty good achievement for the first year round. Now, out of those 14 teams, the top 6, there's 800 teams altogether, and out of those 800, they've picked 68 to be the semi-finalists. So, and out of those 68, they're going to pick 6 to get a free trip to San Francisco in July to do the global pitch among the other finalists, and get a tour of Silicon Valley and do all sorts of cool tech stuff as you do. Now, so Team Pause Out, we have a company, Technology One, have come on board in the last couple of weeks, and they have offered to send Team Pause Out to San Francisco to be part of the global competition. Now, they haven't been named as semi-finalists, sadly. They didn't quite make it, but they have an honorary invitation to come and just be part of the amazingness of 2 days of all these other teams from around the world and just being part of something bigger than just here, which is really powerful. Now, in saying that, we had a number of finalists, state finalists from last year. So our New South Wales state finalist, her name is Emma, and Emma's 9. So Emma didn't even get a team together. So Pause Out had 4 girls. Emma entered on her own. So Pause Out, I think they're 14, 15 years old. But yeah, Emma's 9. So Emma created an app. So they created a prototype, essentially. It's a youth entrepreneurship program. We walk them through how to use technology for social good. And then at the end, they come up with a prototype, a working prototype, and a little business plan and a video pitch on YouTube and a bunch of other things. So Emma, she created an app which helps parents coordinate after-school carpooling activities at 9. So again, yeah, I know, you can sort of feel and go, oh, wow. But again, she's listening, she's attuned to what's going on around her. She's hearing her mum say, I can't take you here because I have to be here, and that kind of stuff. And she's thinking, if only we had an app, maybe I could get to go where I want to go. So maybe that's the motivation. But so Emma, yeah, amazing at 9. You can see all the pictures on the website. If you pop under the latest info, you'll see the pictures there, and you can see all the videos, which are fantastic. So we actually launched this book in Google headquarters in Sydney on the 8th of March, and Emma, Team Pause Out, and our WA team came along and showed off their apps to about 150 industry people. They're there with the head of engineering, Google Australia, New Zealand, just having a chat as you do and thinking about their next steps. So for them, we flew them all in and they had a really great day. Now, our finalists from WA, from Western Australia, they're a team called Vocabulary Voyages. So what the Vocabulary Voyages do, they've created an app to help young people prepare for NAPLAN. So again, a very practical problem that needs to be solved. In our text world, we don't spell very well. So trying to teach young people those skills once again. So Vocabulary Voyages, they also came over to Google in Sydney in March. And ever since they submitted their entry at the end of last year and became the state finalists, they've been working very hard on their app. So they've been working so hard that their teachers don't even know what they're doing with the code anymore. They've kind of gone beyond that level. And they've submitted to the global competition. Now, they're the only Australian team out of those 14 who've made it to the semi-finals, which is very exciting. So out of 800 teams, they're down to 68. They're one of the 68. So they may make it into the top 6 to actually get to pitch in San Francisco. So again, this is our first year participating in the global competition. And for me, it's just so amazing to have provided this opportunity for young girls. And that's really all I'm doing. I'm just connecting the dots. I'm just finding a way to give them a platform to share their ideas. And what's been so amazing is seeing how much they take it on board. So you'll see in some of the videos, if you have a look, they're saying things like, I'm a superhero, and I can do this, and they're really owning it. And really, it's just a couple of words. But what it tells you is language is so very powerful. And I mean, you see all those videos, I don't know if you saw the campaign, which was the Like a Girl campaign. And so if you look at the hashtag Like a Girl, they're saying, what does it look like to run like a girl? And the young girls are running and the boys are like, like a girl. And I mean, there's this language that we use that's really quite demeaning, particularly to young people, and they take that on board. So I think it's about changing that language and making it a bit more powerful and positive and really embracing that. And so young girls themselves are actually doing that now, which is just incredible. So that's the competition up until the end of last year. We ran a showcase event at QUT, who were one of my main sponsors, at Gardens Point campus in November. We had about 250 girls and teams and parents running around. We had makerspace and we had lots of hands-on stuff. And it was just a really fun experience. And we had the Innovation Minister come along, Minister Enoch. And just for the girls to be part of that community, it made them feel like they weren't alone. And that's one of the biggest challenges with this, is that young people feel very, very alone. I have girls in high school, their parents come to me and say, she's the only girl in her tech class. She's quitting just because she's the only girl in the tech class, even though she's the best person in that class, most high achieving. Just a couple of days ago, yesterday actually, I was speaking to a mother who's a teacher, And her daughter is studying, funnily enough, at QUT as well. And she was saying that she's in second year doing maths and IT. She wants to quit. Because again, she doesn't feel that community. She doesn't feel part of it. She doesn't really feel like she belongs. And again, that's not a reason for us to be losing our young people as part of this pipeline. To me, that's really, really sad, that we have an environment that they don't feel safe and comfortable. And I know myself, coming through my own IT degree, I felt quite out of place. I was a mature age student, filled with a lab full of smelly young boys. No, just kidding. But it kind of felt that I was so very different to all of those. And I was lucky that I found a group of young women to work together. So we all worked together and we just beat the boys instead. So that was our way of getting a bit of payback. But I guess it's about providing a sisterhood, providing a place where young women can feel comfortable and confident. And confidence is the absolute underlying key to all of this. Without confidence, we don't move on and do anything. So the competition, even though it's a competition, it essentially is a youth entrepreneurship program. And the idea is for young people to build skills, to run businesses, to build new technologies, to be innovative, and to be able to then transfer those skills in a really practical, real-life way. So we talk about it as solving real-world problems superhero style, I guess. But just thinking about what is that problem in your local community you want to solve, and how can you make a difference to actually make that happen? And we give them all the tools that come through Technovation. So like I said, we spend some time really defining the problem that we want to solve first, because for me, we don't want to just build technology for technology's sake. There's so much technology out there that is a solution looking for a problem, and that's not helpful. So for me, it's about finding a problem, being very clear on what that is, and then finding a practical way that we can solve, and a practical, useful, and feasible way of solving that. So we spend lots of time on that before we actually go to the technology, because so what? Technology, to me, is almost secondary. It's sort of an underlying thing that we can then apply to the situation. So girls seem to really like that it's all about them and what their problems are. And for instance, one of the apps, I have about 10 teams actually in the competition that I'm mentoring. We ran short of a few mentors, but they're amazing. And it's nice to be part of the process and not just be organising it too. And so, for instance, one of the teams, what they're trying to do is to match up separated families. So to have a way that parents who basically don't want to talk to each other anymore, to actually have a common ground where they can use technology to share information. So for instance, around schedules, picking up kids and things. The parents don't want to talk to each other, but let's have a system where we can document this information, and it's our talking point. It's our message board. For me, it was like, wow, what a great idea. I would never have thought of that because I've never been in that situation. So it's about giving young people the agency, essentially, to create what works for them in their situation. So very much about empowering young people, and hopefully then they'll come and choose to work in STEM. I can't make anyone do anything. All I can do is give them choices and give them options and give them information. And so hopefully when they have all the information, they'll realise that this is somewhere they want to be. And it's interesting because Team Pause Out, our winners from last year, a couple of days ago, they found themselves in almost like a Shark Tank kind of situation where they had a bunch of investors sitting around and they were out there pitching their idea. Anyway, the teacher sent me a photograph of what the room looked like. And of course, there's all older men sitting around and the girls standing out the front pitching their idea. I mean, it's just a very common situation. And it was only then, even though the girls have been through the program for the last year and a half, it was only then at that moment they realised the value of the Tech Girls movement. Because it's only then they realise that this is a situation so many people find themselves in. I mean, I don't know if you're aware, like venture capitalist funding, only 7% of venture capitalist funding actually goes to female startups or female founders. And so, I mean, you're more likely to hire someone that looks like you. So again, that's why women don't often get hired in technical roles. So again, it's all about patterns and things that our brain kind of tells us. We take the easy option. The easy option isn't always the best option. So it was really powerful to see, and the girls was kind of standing at the front with their arms like this. They felt it was a very hostile situation. You could see just by looking at the photograph. So I think that was a really powerful moment for me to see the shift and just moving a little bit sideways in their thinking. And hopefully then they're going to come and join us. So here we are. As I said, we're off to San Francisco in July, hopefully with 2 teams. Fingers crossed for our second team. And I'll leave some time for questions as well. 2 weeks ago, I was over in Perth. And I went and presented at the school with the vocabulary Voyages. So we had a whole hall full of young people. We had 7-year-olds up to 12-year-olds in the audience. And we had our team from last year, our finalists there. And I was showing a video of their pitch. And you could see, particularly the very young girls, we're actually looking at the team, looking at the screen, looking at the team, looking at the screen, go, is that really you? Is that like, you're a kind of celebrity, do I know you, sort of thing? How are you in the same room? You could just see that going on in their minds. And they were a little embarrassed, of course, as you are, as a 15-year-old. But their role now as role models for their own school and for their own cohort of people coming through is really powerful. So to be able to pass that on to them so they can then take the lead. And it's called Tech Girls Movement for a reason. This is nothing about me. It's certainly not about me. It's about creating a movement, creating positive change in society that we can all get to be part of. And whether it's parents, teachers, I mean, certainly we need men on board as well. We're not anti-men or anything like that. We're never going to change the situation if we don't get men on board, okay? It's part of all of our problems. And particularly when we're starting to have different households now where men are often, well, sometimes staying at home and taking on different kinds of duties, they're facing the similar issues that women have faced for a really long time. So we're starting to see that change in perception about that. So I think diversity benefits everybody. So if we all get on board, make some of that positive change, then we can have some really nice and useful positive outcomes. So I'm not sure where we're going to go next. I've been trying to get on the Ellen show. So I figure if Ellen says tech girls are awesome, we might actually get some quicker change happening. But it's really nice to see that all of you are here, and I'm not sure how many of you are online, but thank you very much for coming. But I think this is a conversation we need to keep having. And it's not something we're going to fix short term. I mean, it's a long-term problem. I wish I wasn't here talking about this, but that's the reality of the world we live in. So let's not complain, let's do something positive, and there's something that every single one of you can do when you leave today. So whether it's just encouraging a female colleague to come to an event that maybe she wouldn't have done. Maybe it's talking to a young lady, and rather than saying how pretty her dress is, actually asking her what her favourite book is. How does she want to make a change in the world? And so often women are conflated with their appearance and what they look like. And I mean, I was just reading something about introducing, actually at academic conferences, when you introduce your panel or your speakers, often the men get presented as, here are their qualifications, and the woman, oh, you've got a pretty dress on, or so great that you could be part of this audience because, you know, those kinds of things. I'm not sure, it doesn't always happen, but again, it's this unconscious bias that kind of plays out a lot that we don't really think about. So taking something away with yourself and carry one little thing that you can do to make a difference. Thank you all very much. Microphone. Otherwise you have to talk into the
microphone, otherwise I have to talk to your back. Thank you very much. That was absolutely great. Now, I've got to ask, are there any questions from the audience here today? You can ask a question now, or you can email a question and it will get answered. So the email address is up there, I did say it before, and it's certainly online for those of you that would want to email. And of course, continue to follow us on Twitter.
Yes, or tweet your questions too.
So yeah, tweet the questions. Yeah, that's a really good thing to do. Has anybody got any questions?
Maybe? Too many questions, maybe.
There's no specific. Yeah, there's no specific questions, but
not sure that's working.
But it is. But Michael Sankey did put out a rhetorical question that I thought was interesting.
Good.
So, peer pressure is a big thing for young girls wanting to do tech.
Yes.
Can they be embraced by those already there? So that was one of the outward.
I like that. I think that's a really good point, that peer pressure is absolutely important. And what we're trying to do here is to make it normal for girls to like tech. And so that it's not seen as something unusual or different. And it's interesting also that you asked that, because it's not just an image about young women, it's an image for young men as well. So I've had young men who are studying IT or technology at university come to me and say, we actually have a pretty bad image as well. Like everyone thinks, oh, you're the weirdo guys, and we don't want to be like you either. So it's not a good message, an image for them, or for young women. So I think anything positive we can do is a good thing, and peer pressure is absolutely key. And that's why we want all the girls to get involved, so then everyone's like, what's wrong, you're not in this? Why aren't you in this? You're the one missing out. So that's when the peer pressure maybe comes around positively.
Well, I've got a question.
Please.
My question is, you said very early on that when girls were portrayed in movies and they were the geek, they had the thick spectacles and they were dressed very boringly, flat shoes. And then you talked about your superheroes. Well, they're not really stereotypical either.
True.
So if you were to portray a girl as a stereotypical tech tech girl. How would you portray her?
Excellent question. Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. That, I mean, it's the other extreme, and that's really the point.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Yeah, that's right. So, hang on, I've just lost my train of thought. What I would suggest and what I try to do is to present atypical role models. So you've got the typical, okay, you might look like a nerd and you wear the t-shirts and sneakers and that kind of thing. And there's nothing absolutely wrong with that. That's certainly a part of the industry. But what we don't see is they're everyday regular people working in tech. So they're always a little bit unusual. So it's about, and so we ran a crowdsourced screening of a documentary a couple of weeks ago called Code, Debugging the Gender Gap. So it's a great documentary talking about the history of women in STEM and some of the things that we can do to change it. And so we had a panel after the session, and so there was myself and 3 other panelists, and if you look at the stereotypes, none of us fit the stereotype. And so about presenting those kinds of images just to kind of almost shock people in a way and say, that's not what I expect to see. Why? And so what is it about you people? And to get people talking. So I think it's presenting what people don't expect to see is the way of doing that.
Thank you. Now, any more questions? There's one over here.
Excellent.
I have a question. I have the mic up front.
Awesome, perfect.
I just wanted to ask, do you think girls learn better from women in that tech environment, or does it not matter? Should we be sort of looking at more women to be teaching the way?
Oh, excellent question. I would say, firstly, yes. I think, and through the program, we definitely match teams up with female role models, even though I've had a number of men want to come on board, but because I want to particularly give them that experience that they may not get anywhere else. I think learning from anyone, and anyone who's actually ever been mentored, particularly higher up in organisations, they often say they've had male mentors and they've been very helpful. And I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've had male mentors myself. I think there's just a different kind of level of understanding from a female perspective about some of those challenges and some of those barriers, essentially, that we need to get over or get through. So I think there's benefit from both sides, but certainly the more people we can get involved in teaching, the better. And it's a really, really excellent question that you ask. We need more people teaching in general in tech. I mean, so they're saying in 5 years' time, we won't have a quarter of the technology workforce we need around the world. So that's 25% of the workforce we need, we simply won't have. Good for me, I can earn lots of money, but not great for our industry, not great economically. And they're saying in 5 years' time also, 75% of jobs out there will require some kind of STEM skills. So if you're not getting them now, you're going to get left behind. It's just the way the world works these days. And for me, it's all about problem solving. The technology, again, is kind of secondary. It's about solving problems and having practical solutions to those problems. We can all do that. We all do that every day, but applying it in a different kind of way. Wonderful question. Thank you.
I love the idea, actually, that girls behave in a particular sort of way. We have a lot of women in the audience today, and I have to say, whenever women are in leadership roles, we have a different repertoire of behaviours to our male colleagues. Sorry, guys. But what works for a woman doesn't always work for a guy, and most of the time we see guys as our role models, and what works for a guy certainly doesn't work for a woman. So I think with that in mind, that maybe we should be thinking about moving on. Are we just about out of time?
I've got another question, which I'd like to put to
Please.
Jenine. Thank you, Jenine.
Thanks, Helen.
I am just in awe of the momentum that, it's just over 2 years from idea to here you are with, all these amazing people. It's just phenomenal. There's been so many different STEM initiatives, activities, it's bubbling up over the years. Yep. What do you think, what is it about this particular initiative that's allowed it to just have momentum and just run and just seem to have such an amazing amount of impact in such a short period of time?
Excellent question. If I could bottle that, I might make that $1 million, or $1 billion now we're talking, aren't we? I think it's partly because it's based on research, so it's putting that research into practice, so there is an evidence base where that comes from, so I think that's really important. I think it's a long-term strategy. So I never started this thinking it would be a 6-month thing, a one-off thing. It was always going to be a long-term, at least 5 years, if not more. And so I think a lot of other initiatives kind of do something which is fantastic, but there's not that longevity. So I think the longevity is key. And I think what I've been trying to do is to really supplement other programs and not run workshops that they're running and do those kinds of things, but have something that's a little bit different that sustains that momentum over time. And it's kind of timeless. So I mean, the stories in the book, they really are timeless. So my character Jewella, so I'm Jewella because I make jewelry. And that's how I got through my PhD, was making jewelry. I have something on today, I think. And my character goes into outer space and finds a gemstone and brings it back to Earth, which is a clean energy source and saves the world kind of thing. Now, it's going to take a few years before we get to that point where we have that clean energy source to save the world. So it is a bit timeless at the moment in that we've got these stories. And I think I have an amazing ghostwriter who was actually my PhD supervisor, Sue. She's amazing. And so she's helped bring all those stories together in a really, with some continuity, and really profiled the women with their strengths. And I have to give a shout out to Dan Heck, who's our artist, who's done all of the designs, and he's just amazing. I give him a photograph, I give him a story and a profile, and he somehow comes up this amazing character. And again, he's managed to bring these people to life in a way that I don't think we could have any other way. So I think the imagery is key, the storytelling, I think the way we learn is through stories, and I think the long-term strategy as well. So what an excellent question. Thank you.
And are these books available to the general public? Or?
They certainly are. So we give them out free to schoolgirls. So we're always looking for funding if you know of anyone who's interested. But certainly girls can jump on the website and order one for free. I often post books of them out to schools for classrooms and things. And yes, if you want to donate on the website or buy a book, you can do that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I think all that remains for me is to say thank you very much. This is a small token from USQ.
Lovely.
And I think if we go to the very last slide, it'll tell us when our next USQ salon is. So the next USQ salon is the topic of Our Powers Combined, making engagement count. So a different sort of power,
yes.
I think.
Oh, I like it. I like the theme.
And the presenter is Matt Finch. So organisation, Creative in Residence, State Library of Queensland, and we'll be doing that on Tuesday, the 7th of June. The time is 11 o'clock till 12 noon, so slightly earlier, and it'll be in this media studio for those of you who want to come, so I'll see you here. And for those of you online, we'll see you online, or you can just catch the recording. So thank you very much, Jenine, and I think we've come to an end, so...
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.